I was about 8 years old. It was a Friday evening. At the time, my mum always did her shopping early on a Friday evening, and she took me with her, as she always needed help to carry a few bags. And because it was a Friday, she would always let me buy a packet of sweets. As we were walking along the first long aisle of the supermarket, she said to me, "Go on, go and choose some sweets if you want." So I ran round the top of the aisle, around the corner to the second long aisle, which is where the sweets were located. I remember the first aisle of the shop having maybe 6 or 8 people in it, all doing their end of week shopping. The second aisle only had one elderly gentleman there, near the sweets, and a shop assistant further down towards the end of the aisle, by the tills. As I got to the sweets, I was probably about a metre away from the elderly gentleman. He was very smartly dressed. He wore a long, dark green tweed type of coat, and a shirt and suit and tie, and very nicely kept shoes. He saw me approaching, and turned his head and smiled to me. I could see, and I'm guessing here, he was in his mid-80s at least. He had these blue eyes and was cleanly shaven. You could tell his appearance meant a lot to him. But as I stared in his eyes, it was as if I could read him, and understand him, and pick up information. And he kept looking in my eyes, but looking with this, well, as if he knew something, as if he was telling me. And I picked up the name Alexander, and that he'd been lonely for quite a long time, like he'd seen wars, which he obviously did, but that he was happy to have got through war and survived, but also that he missed all his old friends who had either been killed in warfare or in the subsequent years following. I also picked up that he missed his sister, who died about 30 years ago, and he'd been living on his own ever since. And all the time I was getting this information, we were looking in each other's eyes, and he was smiling at me. And then, just as I'd finished getting this information, he said in the most calmest of voices, "Hello." And I said hello back to him. But I can still remember not only his smile, but his demeanour too. He smiled at me for what seemed like ages. But it was like we just had a conversation with our eyes. Even though I was very young, because of spiritual occurrences that happened to me when I was young, I knew this meeting was different. Still smiling at me and looking into each other's eyes, the gentleman gave me the most reassuring head nod that I've ever seen. But then I was getting more information. It was as if he was telling me, everything's okay, everything's gonna be okay. As we were still looking in each other's eyes, the old man collapsed to the floor. Given the fact I was so young, I didn't know what to do. So I looked up and called out to the shop assistant at the bottom of the aisle, "Excuse me," with some urgency in my voice. And as she looked up, I pointed downwards and pulled a bit of her face. She soon realised what was going on. But the aisles were very long in that shop, maybe 70 or 80 metres long, and it took her quite some time to come over to me. All the time, though, I was looking at this man on the floor, and it was as if he was still looking at me, but he had stopped moving, stopped breathing, but he was still looking eye to eye. Knowing the shop assistant was on her way, I moved closer to him. He looked so calm, so relaxed. He was still looking in my eyes, still smiling. Then I noticed His smile relaxed, but he was still looking in my direction. I was probably stood now about a foot away from him, looking down, still seeing those big blue eyes. Then, from his chest and his face, I saw this white mist rising up. It came up about 2 foot, and then just hovered there. And I realised, this is his spirit. I can see his spirit. And then, about 70% of it came to me. It came to my face. It went in my face. And I was a little bit startled, to say the least. And then I saw the rest of it, maybe 20 or 30%, go up in the air, go up, and then disappear. I knew I'd just seen his spirit leave his body. He'd passed on. But I also knew I'd seen the spirit come to me, in me. It went right in my face. I took a second or two just to think about what had just occurred, still looking at this man on the floor. Then I looked up just as the shop assistant was coming over to us. She said, "Oh, I'll phone an ambulance." I replied, "There's no need to, love. He's just passed on. He's gone now. He's happy. He's okay. Everything's okay." She gave me a funny look, and really, why shouldn't she? But she said, "How do you know he's passed on?" I said, "I saw his spirit rise up. He was happy, he was calm, he was okay." Just at that moment, my mum came round the corner. She kind of ushered me to move away from the situation, so we walked on down the aisle. I remember looking back at the man on the floor, and the shop assistant closed the gentleman's eyes. I muttered to myself, "I hope you're in a better place." And my mum heard me. She said, "He will be." The following week, on the Thursday, the local free paper came out. I was aware even back then of obituaries, so I decided to have a look in the paper, and there it was, Mr. Alexander. I remember reading that he had left no one, so everyone he knew had died already. I took another moment to remember his nice blue eyes and how smartly dressed he was, and also remembering that some of his spirit went in me. I then repeated to myself, "I hope you're in a better place." It was then I closed the newspaper and went and did what most kids did, and went out and played with my friends. I've never forgotten Mr. Alexander, and never forgotten that day. Even 40 years on, I can still see his lovely blue eyes, and it makes me think, I've got blue eyes. That's what I noticed about him, his big blue eyes. They looked like mine. And he looks a similar height to what I am. And he looks a little bit similar to me, facially. And, is there some link there? Is there? All I know is he taught me something that day. I learned something that day. It's carried on with me for 40 years. Most days in my life, I take that experience and I use it, and I genuinely try and help people in their experiences, and I fully 100% believe there's something else. That spirit goes somewhere. This story is the first real life story that I want to tell you. There's many more to follow. My name's Scott Spirit, and if you'd like to hear other stories, go and watch my other videos. If you're interested in getting a psychic or tarot reading from me, great. Come and visit me at timepsychics.com. And if you need a little chat, again, just come round and give me a call or chat online. Have a little talk. I'm also going to be making more videos, as I've said. And it does take quite a bit of time to make these videos. I'm no Steven Spielberg. So I'd appreciate a bit of support if you can do that for me. I would really appreciate it. I've got a Patreon account there. And, well, I wish you all the best. And on a final note, I'm going to say, may the good spirits be with you and guide you on your journey and take you under their wings when you do so need. Peace and love.